Naomi, or the girl not quite from Manchester. I was visiting Manchester with my mother and a friend. We stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but across the street was a Palace Hotel, which looked like it had more of a story, though I never learned what that might have been. My first night in Manchester, a Thursday, I got very drunk. After 4 gin and tonics, I was rocking in my chair, loud, and soon violently disengaging my brief tenure with said drinks. Friday happened. I had a hangover, and my brother had a concert he wanted to bring all of us to. I took some brief and comfortable naps while the orchestra played. We ate a delicious meal, and I declared I would marry the waitress, Maria, who could draw passable flowers on receipts and made me feel great about every choice I made from the menu. In the afternoon on Saturday, we went for a cream tea. We had another waitress who had the most beautiful smile. During that tea, she wasn't just our server, she was a part of the conversation. I was blushing every time she walked away and did my best to lead the conversation when she returned. She shared her tattoos, where I first learned, and almost immediately forgot her name. She had an Ouroboros tattoo, and I excitedly told her about my upcoming plans to get something similar. When I mentioned I played violin, she grinned. Our waitress was Naomi, the girl in Manchester who was from South Africa and had lived in Washington State and Utah. Every time she came to the table, she laughed and she smiled and she was passionate. She loved music, she loved to laugh, she loved to smile. Or at the very least, she chose to do the second two. As we were leaving, she slipped me a note with music suggestions, and considering I only had 2 nights left in the city, I decided what everyone has to decide sometimes. I might as well give it a go. I told my mother and the rest of them that they should take a taxi back to the hotel. I'd catch them up. Once they had safely left, I stepped back into the shop and walked up to Naomi, the entire staff clearly aware of what I was about to do, and said, "I'm leaving for the States in just a couple days. Would you like to do something tomorrow?" No matter how confident I was, it was a relief when she grinned and said yes. She promptly wrote down her number and name, which was good because I'd already forgotten her name. I only then thought to tell her my name, and I walked out that tea shop with a bigger grin than I've ever had. I spent the next day with friends and family. It was a nice day, but I couldn't keep the excitement out of my mind. I had a date and she was brilliant. Of course, I didn't know her. I can't say I know her now, but I did know she was brilliant. When my date loomed just ahead of me, I ducked out from the group, went to the hotel room, and got ready. I dressed quite smartly, if I say so myself. Then I had a panic attack. The walls felt like they were coming in on me, and escape seemed impossible, because what I'm afraid of is always too big and terrible to ever really understand. But I read some wise words that made me think perhaps everything would be all right. Or it would at worst be a disaster, which isn't always so bad. I came downstairs to find Naomi, who wore a pink scarf that matched the highlights in my hair, and she took me on an adventure around Manchester. She had only lived there for 7 months herself, so it really was an adventure as she tried to navigate the far more clueless me to her favorite places. We walked down by the canals and followed a path we weren't supposed to follow. I tried to identify plants to prove I knew things because I'm an idiot. But Naomi kept smiling, laughing, joking, and talking. Sometimes to me, sometimes to herself. I learned about Naomi. Her life had lots of tragedies, but she chose to smile and laugh anyway. She chose to say her thoughts. She chose to say her thoughts. She was sincere. I almost kissed her under a bridge, but I did not. And I almost kissed her in a little park with flowers and beautiful trees, but I did not. Then we sat underneath a pavilion, and I asked if I could kiss her. "I thought you were going to kiss me under the bridge," she said, and nodded. I like to think we both tried to make that last as long as possible. I saw her eyes up close, which I insisted were beautiful, and she insisted were not. I was going to kiss you under the bridge, I told her. We kept exploring Manchester, and she brought us to the Royal Northern College of Music, which was her favorite place in the city. She loved music. She said she liked to smile and wave at the musicians while they practiced. We looked in the window of a music shop where she had once inquired about a Steinway without knowing the price tag. We walked through a shopping center and through a little rainbow arch, and I couldn't tell you what the order of any of these events was. We ended up on a roof of a little bar. It was quiet when we arrived, and we talked with our drinks. She told me more stories of her life. I did the same. I made plenty of subtle suggestions about where we could go afterwards. We both kept grinning. And I hoped my stumbling bluntness, which I've been told can be charming, might work. And if not, that was fine too. I walked her to her bus stop. After she told me I would not be joining her, in perfectly understandable and polite terms, she asked, "What's that face?" "What face?" I asked her. "This one," she said, mimicking me. "I don't know," I said at first. I put on a smile as we walked with our arms around each other. That was happy, at least. I lost track of myself as I looked up at the cloudy Manchester sky. "You're doing it again," Naomi insisted. First I said, "I'm not bitter, just so you know. I don't, hold it against you that I'm not going back to your place." "Of course not," she said. I pursed my lips and sighed, and then, in a rush, I said, "Do you want to know the honest truth?" "Of course," she said. I've just had the most wonderful date, and the happiest time in my entire trip, and now it's almost over, and if I ever see you again, it certainly won't be soon. "But a happy thing's happened," she said. "That's true," I said, and I smiled. This time it was a genuine smile. It has been a happy thing. As we talked and several buses passed by, which she should have taken, she said something that I wrote down immediately. I didn't want to ever forget it. We walked to another bus stop closer to my hotel. When we arrived, I forced myself to say goodbye. I told her she'd have to come to New York and that I'd try to be back in the fall. I tipped my hat to her as a joke as I walked away backwards. Then I turned around, shoved my hands in my pockets, and I thought about what she said and how true it might be. When I got to my floor in the hotel, I knew I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to answer how it went, because the true answer would be wonderfully, but I wasn't ready to say that. So I sat on the floor in the hallway, and I listened to music. After some time, I walked inside my hotel room. I said it went well, as I tucked into bed, or in my case, the floor on a sleeping pad. I kept listening to the same music, and I kept thinking about those words Naomi said. "I'm still not certain I agree. No one is worth your happiness," she told me, as the end of the evening brought me down. "I don't know if that's true," I said after a moment. "It is," she insisted. I hugged her very tightly, because I was right. Naomi, however little I might have known her, really was brilliant.